Hello, humans. Bit of an odd one this week. We've all heard about the William Tell legend, you know, the arrow and the apple. Well, in a desperate bid for attention and to get more subscribers, we're going to recreate that with JP's Uzi submachine gun. JP, is there any particular reason why we're using an Uzi and not a highly accurate rifle, for example?
It's got a stock.
It's got stock. Okay, we'll be fine then. You're my man. Good. Good. Okay. I mean, are we sure this is necessary? Because, I don't know, man. I'm starting to feel a little bit funny about the whole thing. No? Okay. All right. Right. It's fine. It's okay. I'm ready. Okay, I'm ready. Here we go. Here we go. Yep. No. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You've never seen me wrong before. It's gonna be fine. Just keeping this apple on my head's hard enough.
Ready.
It's okay, humans. Today's episode is in fact about squibs. When it comes to squibs or micro detonators, it's not just a case of one size fits all. You may want to put holes in a person, or a wall, or, whatever. In this episode, we're going to demonstrate a few different methods to give you a sense of what we use, when and why. And we're very lucky to be joined by our good friend and senior effects technician, Ted, who'll be rigging my blood squibs.
So a lot of people are familiar with body bullet hits and seeing people get riddled by bullets in action movies and what have you. Now, there's a common trend, isn't there, where a lot of that is now being replaced with CG, would you say?
Yes.
So what would you say are the benefits of using a pyrotechnic squib to get the effect of a bullet hit on someone?
I think largely because the dynamics involved in blood splatter and many small particles moving, like stone exploding off a wall or smoke coming from the barrel of the gun, the physics of it is so complicated that your eye knows pretty quickly when something's up.
Yeah.
It might not be a definitive thing that you can put your finger on, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking something wasn't quite right with that.
Yes, yeah. So when we rig Tom, what's the process of that in actually rigging someone with a squib?
Normally, to look at the physical size of the person you're rigging the squib on,
right.
The materials that you've got to get the blood and the bullet hole to transmit through, and looking at whether or not you might need to pre-prepare that fabric, or whereabouts you're going to hide things on the body, because obviously depending on what they're wearing, your options for hiding stuff can be very limited.
Gotcha.
Then really kind of winding back the amount of charge that you're going to use to achieve the effect that's being sought.
So I guess with costume as well, if there needs to be multiple takes done, there'd need to be a repeat costume as well?
Yeah, so sometimes, within budgetary constraints, we'll be sent 4, 5, 6 repeats of the same piece of costume to prepare in advance,
right.
so that On the day, it can literally be simply somebody taking off a jacket, putting on a fresh one, we connect the wires, and that way we're not setting behind the day, spending 20 minutes, half an hour setting up a whole new squib hit for that new piece of clothing.
Do you think that's why some modern productions might prefer to use CG methods?
It's certainly one of the reasons it can happen, yeah, absolutely. There is also placement of the bullet hit on the body. Things like head hits, face hits can be very complicated to do practically. They're not impossible, as many movies have shown in the past, but obviously the risks involved in, putting charges near people's ears, near their eyes, all that sort of stuff are very great. Absolutely nothing wrong with doing it with CG if you can get a reasonable end result.
Because these aren't toys, are they? They're quite dangerous little explosives.
Yeah, I mean, considering their size, a lot of these are capable of blowing off fingers or blinding you. Yeah, you certainly wouldn't want to swallow one of these.
Exit wound. Oh my God. I feel like the back is the one that's going to hurt more. I don't know why. It's exciting. It's exciting.
I would like to think neither of them is going to hurt you.
Right.
You will certainly feel them.
Yeah.
But
so this isn't something I need to really worry about.
I would hope not.
It's going to be fine.
No, they are quite small charges.
Cool. Cool.
But small but powerful.
And that's quite a common size for body hits. Do they go bigger? Do they go smaller?
They go much bigger, yeah. Not necessarily physically much bigger, but in terms of their power, yes, definitely.
And is that done through a different composition, or?
It depends. Right. Yes, some of them are. Some of them actually use high explosives like detonating cord. These generally use lead stiffenate or a derivative of these days because lead's been outlawed. Yeah, generally it's more composition to give a bigger impact.
And they're electrically fired. So as you mentioned, we use the system that we have here. And the the benefit of that is you being able to sequence them and
absolutely. I mean, I've been using Cobra for about 8 years now. I was sort of fairly early adopter to their system. I sort of started out in the live event world, so I was doing stage pyrotechnics and flame cannons and that type of thing. So they do some larger. This is a relatively new arrival. This is their SPFX module, but they do larger ones, sort of more geared to the firework world. So allow you to do very complex sequences. So you can pre-program this onto a memory stick, upload it onto the firing module, and then produce some quite intricate firing sequences with it.
And this is one of the.
That's right. Yep.
One of the bags.
So from the blood that as it arrives in the container, this is generally pretty thick and difficult to get moving,
right?
Because it's designed to be sort of applied to the face, and if it all ran straight off, it wouldn't be much use. So we tend to thin that down to get it to a sensible viscosity, but without losing all of the colour of the blood. Yeah, you don't want it to look pink.
And you know what blood looks like, don't you?
I spent 10 years as a paramedic, so yeah, I've had my fair share of the real deal.
And this is in a sealed plastic bag?
Yeah, so we use polythene tubing or little grip seal bags, and then a heat sealing machine to produce.
So you can make that different shapes, different sizes?
Yeah, so normally draw it up in syringe, so you've got a consistent, for repeats, obviously you want everything to look more or less the same. So we would use a syringe to dose the amount of blood that goes into that pouch and try and produce something that's fairly uniform.
So we've got the squib charge itself, we've got the blood bag.
Yep.
What else do we need when we rig someone?
So obviously we are setting off an explosive inches away, well, less than an inch from somebody's body. So you've got to provide them with protection. So we use metal plates with a machined orifice in them to project the force of the squib into the bag and away from the body, and obviously project the blood because that's the whole purpose of the effect. And in doing so, obviously protect the person's skin who has the hit attached to them. And there'll normally be a level of padding as well on the back to help mitigate some of the shock that the squib produces.
Because some of them, some of those charges can give quite a punch, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always aim to use, and I think most people would use the smallest charge they reasonably can to achieve the right effect.
We're very aware and very appreciative of experience, and that's often what you pay for. You pay for not only the knowledge but also the experience. And when it comes to safety, or when it becomes anything to do with anything hazardous or specialist in nature, it's really important to get someone on a film project or TV project or even a low budget project, someone there that knows what they're doing, who has the training or the experience or both, that can ensure safety.
Yeah, I mean, in short, the principles of what we were doing are incredibly straightforward. You're making a very basic circuit with something in it that goes bang. That's not a difficult thing to achieve for pretty much anyone. But where it becomes hazardous is not fully understanding the implications of the thing that's going bang. So, you know, knowing that the person who it's fitted to is going to need hearing protection, that they might need eye protection. And it's then how do you incorporate that into your scene and make it all safe and, you know, work with the rest of the aims of the production. And that takes a long time to learn how to do well.
And when you do it right, it shouldn't really go noticed.
Exactly.
So I've often heard horror stories from low budget filmmakers and people with zero budget and you know, using M80s or bangers or fireworks and making their own bullet hits and things like that. And I understand the enthusiasm. I understand, you know, that nature of wanting to achieve an effect, but it's so dangerous and so
absolutely. I mean, you know, the thing about these types of squibs is they are costly. You know, these are about £25 each.
Yeah.
They are absolutely repeatable. They are clinically made in terms of their precision, and that they will always do the same thing again and again and again, which is why they're used across the industry by people who, you know what the different grades are and where it would be appropriate to use one particular type versus another type. One of the awkward things about things that go bang is that contained incorrectly, they can become much more powerful than you originally intended. Mixing different types together can, you know, again cause much larger explosions than people anticipate. So there are a huge number of factors that can affect the end result, and that comes down to experience at the end of the day. I've got, I think, 3 or 4 different qualifications in handling explosives and pyrotechnics, and probably 30 years worth of experience behind me. So it's even smoking a little bit, yeah.
That's insane.
Actual gunshot wound.
It actually does, doesn't it? It looks great. Looks really great. How's the back? I mean, I squashed it, but yeah. Have a look at that.
Oh, exit wound. Round of applause for Ted, I think.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much.
There you go. It's really horrendous.
It's literally over.
In our demo, Ted also rigged a few charges into the wall behind me to create a strafe of bullets. As you see in this test, we were just using sheets of insulating foam as you'd find in a wall cavity. And for the opener, we figured just leaving them bare was fine for the demonstration. But if you're looking to rig a set for such a strafe of gunfire, you're going to need to hide your charges in the walls. We're using set flats fronted with MDF. Ideally, you'd want your flats to have reasonably deep surfaces, as most interior walls are skinned with plasterboard, and so we're seeking to recreate the look of plaster debris exploding from the surface. You also need to decide on what style you're going for with your bullet effects. Are you going for straight up realism, all out John Woo chaos, or maybe something in between? First off, we conduct a couple of tests to see what the best approach is for the effect that we're after. As we're rigging a wall and not a human, we're not using the manufactured and frankly very expensive charges Ted used on me. We're making our own with a simple E-match and black powder combo encased in a pill capsule, cabled to our remote firing system. We drill a couple of holes in our flat, insert the wired charge and hot glue Foamex backing plates on the back side of the wall. Now this is as much a demonstration of what different accompanying materials and methods do and do not work. We refill the cavity with soft debris from where we drilled the holes. We cover the filled cavity with a thin piece of card and then use polyfiller to create a plaster finish. Once this has gone off, we paint over the top, let that dry, and we're ready to go. For the best demonstration, we're going to shoot our tests over cranked, which means big lights. I set up a simple bounced 5K as a backlight, and then another through trace to better highlight the effect of the debris and smoke as it's fired from the wall.
Firing in 3, 2, 1. Okay, that was a bang.
One significantly more.
Yeah, one was a bang.
Okay. So what's the difference between those two then? What do we
So
think
that
happened there?
one I could tell wasn't tightly wrapped enough,
Right.
and that one was very tightly wrapped.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this one wasn't packed in tight enough, which is encouraging.
As you can see, JP had added some Zerk powder just to judge the effect, but knowing that there will be some sparks even from straight gunpowder, we decide to go without it for the next test.
Yeah, the sparks you get with gunpowder is really cool, kind of dark gold.
Having demonstrated Zerk hits in a previous episode, we decided we wanted to go for something a little more real for this one. We're also going to need better backing plates. As you can see, materials like Fomex clearly are not strong enough.
Something a little thicker is required.
While I cut a load of back plates from some leftover timber, JP packs another test charge.
So this is full as earth, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this inside the cavity where the charge is, and hopefully that will give us a nice puff of dust. So it will give the impression, or the real effect of dust coming out from the wall, as if it's the debris or the inner lining of the wall. And there's no way to apply it horizontally, which is annoying. So I'm going to have to think of a clever way.
Recycling and reusing doesn't come without its chores.
We're set for the next test, so I swing a lens to use the opportunity to frame more closely to our final shot.
Firing in 3, 2, 1. Oh, that's very small. Cool, that's good to know, because I can double that dosage.
Yeah, okay.
While JP packs a punchier charge, a word on camera stuff.
So actually 240 frames is the highest I've shot with 5Ks, and actually I hadn't clocked it initially in the monitor, but when I go to look at the viewfinder, there is, it's a hint. And actually we shot Pete with the Uzi at 240, and I don't think you can really see it, but you can't beat a viewfinder. If you've got one on your camera, always do that, because you start to see so much more when you're blocking out all of this ambient light when you're just looking at a monitor. But when you go to the viewfinder and check, actually it's almost imperceptible. So when we do the next test, I'm going to shoot at 200, because I did take it down to 200 and there's no flicker. So now I know, okay, with a 5K, if you want it completely clean and no flicker, 200 is pretty much your max. So that's really good to know. We're learning.
We're just doing, hopefully our last test just before we rig a lot of our charges in a row. And this one, slightly bigger than before. And what we're hoping, again, is to get just that right balance of an exit explosion or exit blast coming from our wall. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Okay, just needs more dust, I reckon. That went over there. So that blew the back out. So with your wood,
Yep.
that's going to be
It's
even
going to
more,
add to the propulsion
more punch.
coming out. Nice.
Once we're happy with our charges, it's time to prep the wall. We double the size to give us a bigger spread. We originally wanted to set up a scene where Pete once again narrowly avoids getting shot by me. So we frame up the shot and mark the hits along the wall.
How many we got? 18.
Yeah, 80.
Once the wooden backstops are in place, we drill a hole through each one for our trigger cables. Then, because we can, we remove the wool from its props so that we can fill the cavities more easily.
Don't need the hammer.
Cock the hammer. Cock the hammer. It's time for action.
Little cardboard wads that help us get a fairly flat surface so that when we put our filler over the top, it's just a bit easier to get a cleaner finish. And it also provides a bit of back pressure to the charge to make them pop out a bit more.
We'd run out of time to get a perfect finish with the filler, but hey, this isn't a plastering tutorial. So I slap some paint over the top, JP wires the charges, and we get ready for the big bangs.
Camera roll. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, boy! Wow, 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 wow.
Originally, the plan was to shoot a scene where Pete almost gets shot. Again. But we were doing all this in a day and we ran out of time. And this might be an opportune moment to point out that time constraints are a huge factor in filmmaking, especially during main or even second unit shoot days, where everything's costing a lot of money. It's easy to point out bad or cheap CG effects without knowing the reason for it, i.e. there wasn't enough time or budget to risk doing it practically, knowing multiple takes may be required, factoring in reset and cleanup time between those takes. Having said that, good CG, along with the work required in prep and on set to make it work, costs time and money too. And one could also argue that for those filmmakers without significant budgetary constraints, there's little excuse to take this so-called easy route, especially if such effects are part of an important or climactic scene that should be created with time and care. And we know only too well there's a huge danger, especially in indie filmmaking, in trying to save money during production by leaving it to post, by which point there's often no money left. And just FYI, we're not big gun fans, but gun effects are a big part of our industry, and quite honestly, they are a lot of fun. But even with fake guns, you've got to be safe.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you pull that back
Yep.
and then release, and you're safe with your finger there, it's
Yep.
not going to fire.
Yep.
The thing to remember on
Yep.
the rear of this is it's got a grip safety.
Oh, yeah.
So if you depress that,
Yeah. Oh. Oh! Oh! That was worth it. Yeah, smoking holes, smoking hot. Dope. Yeah, it does. Well, that was fun. Hope we didn't upset anybody, any squeamish people out there. Was not our intention, of course. I'm sure we probably have. But if you did like what you saw, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, likey, leave us some comments. Oh, and don't forget, we're running a Patreon. So get over there and give us some money to keep this sucker alive. All right, cheers. See you soon. Last brew.